Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss the new stories we share. Let's begin. The moment I saw her standing at the edge of my property, soaking wet from the storm, I knew my quiet life was about to shatter. Rain hammered the Texas plains that October night. Lightning split the sky every few seconds, turning the darkness into flickering frames of chaos. I had just finished securing the horses when I spotted the figure near the old fence post. A woman, alone, drenched. My boots sank into the mud as I ran toward her. "Hey, you all right?" She turned, and even through the sheets of rain, I could see she was trembling, not just from cold, from something deeper. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely cutting through the thunder. "My car broke down about a mile back. I saw your lights." I didn't hesitate. That's not how I was raised. My mama taught me that strangers are just friends you haven't helped yet. "Come on, let's get you inside before you catch your death." I led her up the porch steps and into the warmth of my farmhouse. She stood in the doorway, water pooling at her feet, looking around like she had stumbled into another world. "Name's Colton Reed," I said, grabbing a towel from the hallway closet. "This here's my family's ranch, been in the Reed name for 4 generations." She took the towel with shaking hands. "I'm Grace Holloway." Something flickered in the back of my mind when she said that name, Holloway, but I couldn't place it, not then. I showed her to the spare room and told her she could stay until the storm passed. What I didn't know was that storm would last a lot longer than one night. See, I was 32 years old, and life hadn't been kind to my heart. 2 years earlier, I had been engaged to a woman named Caroline. Beautiful, charming. The kind of woman who made you believe in forever. Until forever ended with a note on the kitchen counter and an empty closet. She left me 3 weeks before our wedding. No real explanation. Just a few sentences about needing something different, someone different. I spent months trying to understand, spent even more months trying to heal. Eventually, I just buried it all, focused on the ranch, focused on the horses, told myself I was better off alone. But that next morning, when Grace came down the stairs in my late mother's borrowed clothes, something stirred that I thought was dead. She looked different in daylight, softer. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of honey in sunlight, but they held a sadness I recognized, the kind you carry when you've lost something you can't name. "I called a tow truck," she said. "They can't come until tomorrow. I'm so sorry to impose." "No imposition," I said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "Ranch gets lonely, could use the company." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Over breakfast, I learned she was passing through Texas on her way to start over somewhere new. She had left her old life behind, didn't say why, I didn't push, but fate had other plans. That afternoon, my aunt called with news that made my stomach drop. "Colton, honey, your grandmother's will reading is in 3 weeks, but there's a condition." I gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of condition?" Aunt Marlene sighed. That was never a good sign. She wrote it in herself before she passed. "The ranch goes to you, but only if you're married or engaged by the reading. Otherwise, it goes to your cousin Bradley." I felt the blood drain from my face. Bradley, the one who had tried to sell off pieces of our family legacy every chance he got, the one who saw the land as nothing more than dollar signs. "That's insane," I said. "Grandma wouldn't do that." "She did, sweetheart. She was worried about you. Wanted to make sure you weren't going to spend your whole life alone out there. Thought this might push you toward happiness." I hung up the phone and stood in the kitchen staring at the wall. Happiness, as if you could force something like that, as if love was a switch you could flip when the timing was convenient. I walked out onto the porch, my mind spinning. That's when I saw Grace in the pasture, standing near the fence, watching the horses graze. The idea hit me before I could stop it. I walked toward her, my heart pounding in ways I didn't expect. "Grace." She turned, that same guarded look in her eyes. "I need to ask you something, and I know it's going to sound crazy." "Crazy seems to be following me lately," she said. "Go ahead." I took a breath. "I need a fiancé just for 1 month, just until my grandmother's will reading. After that, we go our separate ways. I'll pay you whatever you need to start your new life." She stared at me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "You want me to pretend to be engaged to you?" "I know it's a lot to ask, but this ranch is everything to me. It's all I have left of my family. I can't lose it to someone who would tear it apart." Grace looked toward the horses, then back at me. "Why me? You don't even know me." "Maybe that's why," I said. "No history, no complications, just a simple arrangement." She was quiet for so long I thought she was going to walk away. "I'll do it." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you, you won't regret this." But as the days passed, I started to realize I was the one who might have regrets. Not because Grace wasn't convincing. She was perfect, too perfect. She learned the ranch routines. She laughed at my bad jokes. She sat with me on the porch in the evenings, talking about nothing and everything. And slowly, something inside me started to crack open. One night, about 2 weeks in, we were sitting by the fire when she asked me about Caroline. "Who broke your heart, Colton?" I froze. "What makes you think someone did?" She smiled sadly. Because I know what that looks like. I see it every time you think no one's watching. I stared into the flames. Her name was Caroline. We were supposed to get married. She left without warning. Grace was quiet. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago, but it wasn't, not really. The wound was still there beneath everything, and what I didn't know was that Grace held the key to why. The first sign came 3 days later. We were in town, playing our roles for the locals. Grace had her arm looped through mine as we walked down Main Street. Mrs. Patterson from the bakery stopped us, her eyes twinkling. Well, Colton Reed, you finally found yourself a good woman. Let me see that ring. Grace held out her hand, showing the simple gold band I had given her from my mother's jewelry box. Beautiful, Mrs. Patterson said. You take care of this one, Colton. The good ones are rare. As we walked away, I noticed Grace's hand was trembling. You okay? Fine, she said quickly. Just not used to small towns, everyone knows everyone. But there was something more, something she wasn't saying. That night I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs for water and saw a light coming from the living room. Grace was sitting on the floor, surrounded by old photo albums I kept in the cabinet. She looked up when she heard me, guilt flashing across her face. I'm sorry, I couldn't sleep. I found these and... It's fine, I said, sitting down beside her. Nothing secret in there, just old memories. She turned a page, and I saw the photo she was looking at, my engagement photo with Caroline. She was beautiful, Grace whispered. Yeah, she was. Grace's finger traced the edge of the picture. Colton, there's something I need to tell you. My chest tightened. What is it? She opened her mouth, then closed it, shook her head. Never mind, it's nothing. But it wasn't nothing, I could feel it. The next week, the pretending got harder, not because we couldn't fool people, but because I was starting to feel things that weren't part of our deal. I found myself looking forward to her laughter, missing her presence when she went to her room, noticing the way the evening light caught her face. One afternoon, we were working in the barn together when our hands touched, reaching for the same brush. We both froze. Sorry, she said, pulling back. Grace. She looked at me. I need you to know something, I said. Whatever's happening here, it's not just pretend anymore, not for me. Her eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Colton, please, don't. Why not? Tell me you don't feel it too. She stepped back, shaking her head. You don't understand. There are things you don't know about me, things that would change everything. Then tell me. I can't. She walked out of the barn and I let her go, but I couldn't let it rest. That night I did something I'm not proud of. I searched through her bag while she was showering. I don't know what I expected to find. Answers, maybe. Clarity. What I found was a photograph, creased and worn like it had been looked at 1,000 times. It was Caroline. And standing beside her, arm around her shoulder, smiling into the camera, was Grace. The room spun. They knew each other. Grace had known Caroline all along. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, she stopped cold when she saw what I was holding. Colton, I can explain. Then start talking. Grace sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap. I stood by the window, the photograph still clutched in my fingers, trying to make sense of something that refused to make sense. Caroline is my sister. The words hit me like a physical blow. Your sister. Half-sister, same mother, different fathers. We grew up together until I was 12, then my dad took me when our parents split. We didn't reconnect until we were adults. I stared at her. You knew who I was this whole time. Not at first. Her voice cracked. When my car broke down, when you took me in, I had no idea. I was just trying to get somewhere, anywhere away from my old life. But then I saw the photos, heard the stories, and I realized. Why didn't you say something? Tears streamed down her face. Because I was a coward and because I wanted to understand. Understand what? Why she left you. The room went silent except for the sound of rain starting again outside. I came to find her, Colton. A year ago, I wanted to reconnect, build a relationship. But when I found her, she was a mess. She told me about you, about the wedding, about how she couldn't go through with it because she wasn't the person you thought she was. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. Caroline was scared. She made mistakes. She got involved with someone else, someone from her past, and when it all came crashing down, she didn't know how to face you, so she ran. She cheated on me. Grace nodded slowly. Yes, I felt something collapse inside me. All those months of wondering, of blaming myself, of thinking I wasn't enough. And the truth was so simple, so ugly. Why are you here, Grace? Really? She wiped her eyes. Caroline died 6 months ago, car accident, and before she died, she made me promise something. I couldn't breathe. She wanted me to find you, to tell you the truth, to tell you she was sorry. The photograph fell from my hands. She wrote you a letter, Grace continued. I've been carrying it with me. I was supposed to give it to you and leave, but then you asked me to stay, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't just hand you more pain and walk away. So you pretended to be my fiancé instead. I know how it sounds. I know I should have told you immediately, but I saw the way this ranch was your whole world. I saw how much you were hurting, and I thought maybe if I could help you keep it, it would be enough. Enough for what? Enough to make up for what my sister did to you. I walked to the window, staring out at the rain. You lied to me. I know. Every moment, every conversation, every time you looked at me. Not every moment, she said quietly. The things I felt, the things I said about caring for you, those were real. I didn't turn around. I think you should leave, Grace. She stood slowly. The letter is in my bag. Read it or don't. That's your choice. But I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop. I heard her footsteps cross the room, heard the door open and close, and I was alone again, just like before. I didn't read the letter that night or the next. I couldn't. Instead, I threw myself into work, fixed fences, mucked stalls, rode until my muscles screamed, anything to avoid thinking. But the ranch felt different now. Emptier. The silence that used to comfort me had become suffocating. On the fifth night, I finally opened the envelope. The handwriting was Caroline's. I would have recognized it anywhere. Colton, if you're reading this, then Grace found the courage I never had. I'm sorry. Those words feel so small compared to what I did to you. You deserved honesty. You deserved someone who loved you completely. I thought I could be that person, but I was running from too much of my own darkness. Leaving you was the hardest thing I ever did, but staying would have destroyed us both. Please don't let what I did close your heart forever. Grace is nothing like me. She's the person I always wished I could be. If life has brought you together, maybe that's not an accident. Maybe that's the universe trying to give you what I couldn't. Be happy, Colton. You deserve that more than anyone I've ever known. Caroline. I sat on the porch for hours after that. The will reading came and went. My cousin Bradley showed up with lawyers, ready to claim what he thought was his. But I walked in alone, no fiancé on my arm. When the attorney read the conditions, Bradley grinned. Looks like the ranch is mine. Actually, the attorney said, there's an addendum. Mrs. Reed specified that if Colton demonstrated genuine effort toward building a future, the condition could be waived at the executor's discretion. Aunt Marlene stood up. I'm the executor, and I've watched that boy pour his heart into this land his whole life. The ranch stays with Colton. Bradley's face turned red, but there was nothing he could do. I kept the ranch, but it still felt hollow. A week later, I found myself driving. I didn't know where I was going until I arrived at a small motel 2 towns over. Grace's car was in the parking lot. I had traced her through Mrs. Patterson, who had heard through the grapevine where she ended up. I knocked on her door. When she opened it, her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Colton, what are you doing here? I read the letter. She looked down. I'm sorry for everything. I know, I said. I'm not here because I've forgiven everything. I'm here because I can't stop thinking about something you said. What? You said the things you felt were real. She nodded slowly. Did you mean that? Yes, I reached for her hand. Then stay, not as a pretend fiancé, not as Caroline's sister, just as Grace. Let me get to know who you really are. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You'd give me that chance after everything. I spent 2 years afraid to feel anything. You reminded me what it's like to care about someone. I'm not ready to lose that again. She stepped forward and I pulled her close. The healing wouldn't be instant. Trust would take time to rebuild. But standing there, holding her in the doorway of that small motel room, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope. And that was enough to start. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories.